Let's roll the tape back in your mind. The year is 1974. The place is Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It's the height of summer, a season synonymous with sun-bleached boardwalks, the taste of salt in the air, and the promise of carefree days stretching out like an endless ocean. Tourists flock to these shores, seeking refuge from the sweltering inland heat, their laughter mixing with the cry of gulls. It's a picture of American summer at its most idyllic. At the very tip of the Cape, the landscape transforms. Here in Provincetown, the dunes are a world unto themselves, bright, windswept, and beautifully desolate. The Atlantic is a constant, powerful presence, its roar a soundtrack to the solitude. This is Race Point Beach, a place where the curated charm of the town gives way to something wilder, more elemental. On July 26th, somewhere beyond the bustling beach crowds and the families laying out their towels, a National Park Service ranger is making his rounds. It's a routine patrol on a day that feels just like any other. But then, he sees something out of place. A splash of color against the monochrome sand, nestled in a scrub pine thicket about a mile east of the Race Point Ranger Station. He moves closer, and in that moment, the idyllic summer afternoon shatters. He stumbles upon a mystery that will not only grip this small community, but will haunt the conscience of America for decades to come. I'm talking about the case that would become known as the Lady of the Dunes. For nearly 50 years, she was a ghost, a face without a name, captured in a police sketch that became an icon of the unknown. Her story lived in the brittle pages of case files, in the hushed conversations of locals, and in the determined minds of investigators who refused to let her fade away. The police sketch was everywhere, tacked to bulletin boards and post offices and police stations across New England. Everyone knew the face, but no one knew the person. And then there were the rumors. The most persistent, most cinematic of them all was that she might have been an extra in the blockbuster movie. Yeah, that. The movie that made everyone afraid to go in the water was filmed just across the water on Martha's Vineyard during that same fateful period of 74 to 75. The timing was uncanny, the geography tantalizingly close. For years, amateur sleuths and true crime fanatics would freeze frame the movie, poring over the crowded beach scenes, hunting for her face among the extras, convinced that Hollywood held the key to her identity. Now, to understand the full scope of this case, you have to map the journey with me. It's a trail that spans half a century, moving from sand dunes to police stations, from rumor mills to forensic labs. Our trail begins here. Stop 1. Race Point, Provincetown, Massachusetts, July 26, 1974. The victim is a woman, estimated to be in her mid-20s to early 30s, found lying face down in the sand. The scene is strangely serene, almost peaceful. Her head is resting on a pair of folded jeans and a blue bandana, as if she had simply laid down for a nap. But the piece is a horrifying illusion. The medical examiner determines she'd been killed by a blow to the head and had been dead for weeks, possibly since early July. The killer had gone to great lengths to conceal her identity. Both of her hands were missing, severed at the wrist. The logic was brutal and clear. No hands, no fingerprints. No fingerprints, no name. In a pre-DNA world, this was a devastating blow to the investigation. The dunes keep secrets, and for decades this one refused to give hers up. She was an enigma, swallowed by the sand and the sea. Stop 2. The Provincetown Police Station and the offices of the Massachusetts State Police. The initial investigation begins. With no fingerprints, investigators turn to the tools they have. They commission composite sketches, hoping someone, anyone, will recognize her face. They create reconstructive clay models, attempting to bring a three-dimensional life to the two-dimensional drawings, hoping to jog a memory. They meticulously document her extensive dental work, gold crowns, a specific type of bridge work that dentists called New York style. It was expensive, distinctive work. They send out thousands of bulletins to dentists across the country and even internationally. Nothing. Every lead turns into a dead end. Every promising tip evaporates. The dental records yield no matches. The sketches are met with shrugs. The case goes cold. And so she becomes the Lady of the Dunes, a name born of a place, not a person. A ghost in the headlines, a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered to tourists who wander too far into the dunes. Stop 3. The rumor mill. In the absence of facts, speculation rushes in to fill the void. And in a small, tight-knit community like Provincetown, the stories took on a life of their own. There was the story of a mysterious white Cadillac seen in the area around the time of her death. Whispers of a mystery drifter, a transient who passed through town and vanished as quickly as he appeared. Some theories pointed to something more sinister, perhaps a mob connection, given the brutal efficiency of the murder and the efforts to erase her identity. Was she a witness who needed to be silenced? And then there was the Hollywood angle, the one that captured the public imagination like no other. A woman wearing a blue bandana and jeans just like the victim appears for a split second in a crowd scene in... Could she have been an extra on the film set and then wandered from the vineyard to Provincetown where she met her fate? The theory was so compelling that even the son of the book's author, Joe Hill, championed it online, bringing it to a new generation. It's a fantastic story, but ultimately, there was no proof. Just another tantalizing thread in a tapestry of unknowns. Stop 4. New tech, new hope. Decades pass. The files gather dust. But science doesn't stand still. The 2000s bring revolutionary advances in DNA technology. Investigators had exhumed the Lady of the Dunes body several times over the years, hoping new techniques could finally unlock her secrets. Each attempt failed, until now. The real game changer is forensic genealogy. Using public DNA databases, investigators can now take an unknown DNA profile and build out a family tree, searching for distant cousins, great aunts, anyone who can lead them back to their Jane Doe. What was once science fiction becomes a standard part of the cold case toolkit. In 2022, after 48 long years, the FBI, working with a private lab, runs her DNA profile through these genealogical databases. They get a hit, they build a tree, they follow the branches, and finally, they land on a name. The Lady of the Dunes is Ruth Marie Terry. Suddenly, the ghost has a history. She was born in Tennessee in 1936. She was a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother. Her life had twists and turns, taking her from the South to Michigan, California, and finally, Massachusetts. She was last seen alive by her family in the summer of 1974. She wasn't nobody. She was a person with a life, with hopes, with dreams. She had people who loved her, people who had wondered for decades what had become of her. Giving her a name wasn't just a procedural step. It was giving her back her humanity. But identifying the victim is only half the battle. Now, the investigation pivots. Stop. 5. The suspect board. With Ruth's identity confirmed, investigators quickly zero in on her husband at the time of her death, a man named Guy Rockwell Moldavin, also known as Raoul Rockwell. Moldavin was an antiques dealer, a man with a shadowy past. He had a documented history of violence. He used multiple aliases, making him difficult to track. He had a string of marriages, and Ruth was just one of them. They had married only a few months before her death. After she disappeared, he told her family she had left him. He quickly remarried, and crucially, he died in 2002. There would be no arrest, no interrogation, no day in court. Posthumous suspicion isn't a courtroom verdict. The FBI has named Moldavin as the prime suspect, but they are careful with their words. The trail of evidence, they say, leads directly to him. But without a confession, it remains an accusation, not a conviction. So after all this time, what's solved and what's not? We have her name. The most fundamental piece of the puzzle is in place. We have a prime suspect, a man with motive and proximity. But we don't have a trial. We don't have a confession. We don't have every missing hour accounted for in those dunes. We don't know for certain why she was killed or the full story of her final days. The why remains buried with the suspect, which brings us to our final stop, St. Peter's Cemetery in Provincetown. This is Ruth's final resting place. For decades, the marker here read, unknown, a placeholder for a life story no one could tell. Now, it bears her name. Ruth Marie Terry. That matters. In the world of cold cases, it's the first and most important form of justice. It's an act of remembrance, a declaration that she is no longer lost to history. If you chase cold cases, you know the clock is your greatest enemy. Memories fade, witnesses move or pass away, evidence degrades. Time fights you every step of the way. Yet this case proves that time is not always invincible. A single microscopic strand of DNA, preserved for half a century, can be enough to redraw an entire map and rewrite the end of a story. Ruth Marie Terry came home, first on paper and then in stone. And maybe, piece by piece, with the public's help, the rest of her story will finally catch up. The FBI continues to seek information about both Ruth Marie Terry and Guy Moldavin. If you know something, if you remember them from the 70s, if you have family stories, old photographs, names, they urge you to contact the FBI Boston field office. In cases as old as this, the final clue isn't always in a police file. It's often hiding in someone's attic, tucked away in a forgotten box, or buried deep in a family memory, waiting for the right question to be asked. And that's the trail of the Lady of the Dunes. A journey from the shifting sands of Provincetown to a haunting police sketch, through a Hollywood rumor, and finally, to a name. The ocean keeps its secrets well, but as the story of Ruth Marie Terry shows us, it doesn't always keep them forever.